What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPapa, and here we are talking about Japanese booster boxes. Now, we don't talk a lot about Japanese products here on the channel, and I have this hard, fast rule that I don't invest in anything that I don't fully understand, and to be honest with you, I don't have a good grasp on the Japanese Pokemon market. However, I have been trying to learn as much as I can about it over the last 6 months, and it has been this amazing journey of understanding the singles, the graded market, the different rarities, the different pull rates, all kinds of fun stuff about this amazing, amazing, amazing space that is the Japanese side of the Pokemon collecting hobby. Now, one of the things I will say is I did one video on Japanese cards, I don't know, maybe 3 months ago, and it was how I felt like the Japanese market was in the middle of a bubble from a singles card perspective, right? Those PSA 10s of a lot of those cards were getting really, really, really expensive, and to me, it didn't make a ton of sense because the gem rates were so high, the population was so high. And we have since seen the prices start to come down a little bit, which, you didn't have to be a genius. That wasn't because I'm some brilliant PikaPikaPapa, Pokemon thinking mind. Like, it just made a lot of sense, right? But I will say this. I love the Japanese products. I love the Japanese cards. I don't want any of this to be misconstrued as if I don't love the products. Like, I'm spending a ton of time learning about it because I love them so much. I think, the depth of the cards, the texture of the cards, the quality of the cards. Heck, there's special promos. The promos that only come out in Japan are the best in the world, in my opinion. I think they are hands down the absolute best. So I'm trying to learn as much as I can, but throughout this process of learning about the Japanese market and the singles and booster boxes, there's something that I just can't ignore. And even though I'm not fully invested in it, even though that, I don't understand it as much as I'd like to, I had to bring the data to you guys because this is just absolutely insane, some of these price gains that we've seen in Japanese booster boxes as of late. Now look, we all know that I've been doing these video series on how Sun and Moon and Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield have been moving over the last couple months, and Sword and Shield top 20 cards are down 10% over the last 2 months. The booster boxes are down 4.6% over the last 2 months. Same thing for Sun and Moon. As hot as Sun and Moon has been, guess what? Top 20 cards are down 3% over the last 2 months. And booster boxes are following suit with Sword and Shield down 4.7% over the last 2 months. And guess what? Spoiler alert, as we get into this video, you're going to see that things are not doing that over in Japan. We're seeing the complete opposite over in the Japanese space. So again, I encourage everybody, do your own due diligence. Make sure that you understand what you're investing in, but there's some really cool stuff for us to talk about here. Now, the list on the right, those are all the Japanese booster boxes from 2022 and 2021. Now, I did a video series that I do every 3 months, and I created my own Pokemon index funds, which is a ton of fun. We have a Charizard index fund, a Sword and Shield index fund. We have obviously the Japanese booster box index fund. And as I was going through it and updating it this month, I was like, these price gains are absolutely nuts. So we have to get into it, and I've got to share it in front of everybody. And I'm really excited to do that. Now, I'm going to give my always normal sellout pitch in the very beginning, where if you find value in this content, obviously we do this kind of stuff all the time. Hit that subscribe button. Questions or comments, drop them down below. And as always, if you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. So now let's get into this. Now, I broke them down. There's going to be 4 different slides. I have 5 on each and 6 on the very last one. But look at these price changes right here. Now remember, I pulled this data on 5/22 and I just updated it on 11/30. So we're talking about only 6 months here. How freaking crazy is that? Look at some of these price gains. Out of control, 15%, even 5.6% over 6 months is a huge gainer. Then you get to 26%, 30%, and freaking Pokemon Go. You can't give Pokemon Go away here in the US, but guess what? Over the last 6 months, the sealed product over in Japan is up 70+%, which is absolutely crazy. Now, I do want to say this. When you think about V-Star Universe, V-Star Universe is the second most graded Pokemon set behind 1999 English. Think about that. 1999 English, right? The set that started it all over here in the English language, right? I think there's 700,000 plus total 1999 English cards that have been graded. That includes first edition, shadowless, base set, all of that. But then you have V-Star Universe, and there has been 311,000 V-Star Universe cards graded. And that was why when I did my video about how singles cards in the Japanese space were in a little bit of a bubble in my mind, that was one of the things that really jumped off the page at me, just at how many of these Japanese cards are getting graded. And we all know that the gem rate is really high with them because the quality is super good. Now, V-Star Universe has been graded 311,000 times. Compare that to the English side, only 125,000 Crown Zenith cards have been graded. Now, only is not a relative term, right? Only is still one of the highest graded English sets in recent memory. So Crown Zenith and V-Star Universe are absolutely getting integrated into the ground, but V-Star Universe is on a whole different level. Now, I wanted to talk about the fact that, Pokemon over in Japan says it will print to demand. Now, I hear that said a lot, but who knows what that means? I don't think that's a detractor here. I think that's just a very interesting way for them to say it. So, what does that mean? I don't really know. They've said they're going to print 151 over in the Japan market to demand, but is that demand for the Japanese space? Is that the demand for the world? Like, what does that mean? V-Star Universe. There's been a whole bunch of reprints of V-Star Universe, but guess what? It has weathered the storm and it's still up 15%. And then you remember Clayburst, right? Clayburst had the Iono on it. They did an original print run of it, but the demand and the price for that Iono got so crazy that they went ahead and did another series. They've done a couple reprints of Clayburst over there. So it seems like in Japan, they continue to try to make sure that the product gets into everybody's hands who wants it, but it doesn't seem to matter because the demand seems to only continue to grow. So it's really interesting to see the way these sets have gone ahead and, kind of held their water despite the reprints. Now, we're getting into the next 5 right here. So another group of big gainers, but we finally have somebody in the red. Battle Region is finally down. We got one down 24%, but outside of that, look, 3 of them are up 20% plus over the last 6 months. Dark Phantasma is up 21%, Space Juggler up 26%, Starburst up 25%, and as I said, Time Gazer up almost 7% over 6 months is still absolutely amazing. Now, one of the things that I've struggled with when I'm trying to get into the Japanese market is, where do I buy the product from? Right? Like, I don't have a hookup in Japan. I don't have a proxy address anywhere that it can be shipped to. So in my path of research that I've been doing, there's a lot of reputable sites where you can buy Japanese products from. Obviously, eBay is one, but if you can find a website that specializes in this product that has a lot of good reviews, I think that's the best way to go. But a lot of times we can't get them at MSRP. Like here in the English area, like at least we can get a bunch of things at MSRP. But when you see this crazy price appreciation, when you see these cards and these boxes that are just absolutely going nuts, maybe you don't have to get them at MSRP. If you have to pay a little bit of a premium in order to get them here in the US or the UK or wherever you are watching this video, maybe it's worth it, because at the end of the day, if you're going to see 20, 30, 40% price increases, then it doesn't matter if you pay a little bit over MSRP. So those were some of the things that I've been thinking about and I've been working through on the back end when I'm trying to conceptualize how I can get a piece of the Japanese market. Now, another thing here is, look, we finally get another one in the red, right? But it was the 25th anniversary collection, which I think is really interesting to see that set is the one in the red here. It's down 32%. It's actually a whole lot in the red, which is very interesting. But again, VMAX Climax up. Look at the gains here. 50% for VMAX Climax in the last 6 months. Fusion Arts up 52%. Blue Sky Stream up almost 60%. And even Towering Perfection, again, 12% over the last 6 months is absolutely insane. And this was when I started to think about supply and demand. And we talked in the beginning about how the US market, we're seeing a lot of those booster boxes and those singles prices come under pressure, right? The prices are coming down. But here in the Japanese market, the prices are going up. So that tells me maybe some of the English, some of the US, some of the UK, some of the English, native English speaking collectors out there are transferring some of their attention away from the English cards over into the Japanese cards. And then, that got me down the rabbit hole of, well, how does that fit? Like, what does it look? What's the percentage of people in the world who speak English and who speak Japanese, to give me some small idea, of what the collecting base might look like just organically and naturally. And so 6% of the world population are native English speakers, and only 1.7% of the population in the world are native Japanese speakers. And so Japan's not a big place. It's a small island, right? So when I think about the amount of product that is being produced to supply the Japanese population, and then I think about people who in the US or UK or wherever you're speaking English at, we're probably already going after some Japanese products. And now if even more people are going after Japanese products, then it starts to explain a little bit, not just why the US is coming down a little bit or the English cards are coming down a little bit, but also why the Japanese ones are going up. I keep saying the US because I live in the US, but I know that a lot of people who watch this, we're all over the world, and a lot of us collect English, a lot of us collect Japanese, a lot of us collect simplified Chinese. So there's a whole bunch of different languages, and that's what makes Pokemon so great. So for me, when I was thinking about supply and demand, it was very interesting for me to think about how some of the general collecting population that might be collecting their native language might now be going after the Japanese cards, and that population is obviously much, much smaller than some of the other ones out there in the world. Now, getting into the next one right here. So Another one of red right here, but another one of big gains. Now, I will say this, I pull all this data from Polkadata.io, so unless there are actual boxes that exchange hands, the prices don't change. So when you look at Rapid Strike and Single Strike, like there weren't any that have exchanged hands as of late, so the prices simply remain flat. But then, remember I talked about printing to demand earlier and the reprints in the Japanese space and how a lot of these boxes have been able to kind of push through any reprints? Well, EV Heroes was the one that came out, it got really hot, prices went up, they reprinted it, and guess what? EV Heroes doesn't care. It's still a $420 box right now, and it's gone up almost 33% over the last 6 months, which is absolutely insane. Then you got Jet Black Spirit right there, which is up again almost 30%, and then Matchless Fighter right there, which is up 110%. When I see these kind of gains and stuff like this, it reaffirms my thought from the previous slide where, hey, I think people are taking some of their attention where they were focused on other parts of the hobby, and they're sliding over into the Japanese sealed market right now because these type of gains, these don't happen organically. This is an overall shift in market attention and collectors' attention. So interesting to see these kind of big gains. Now, I talked about this earlier. The Japanese quality is just historically off the charts. Now, I'm starting to hear some little rumbles about some of the newest sets where it's not as high as it used to be, but that was probably just a bad print run in my mind. I can't see them being the best in the world for the longest time, then all of a sudden just deciding to throw their hands up and, give up on the quality side of things. That just doesn't really jive with Japanese culture as a whole. So, the gem rates of these singles cards have been incredibly high, 80% plus in most of the ones that we look at in our, most graded videos that we do. And there's a new one coming out in the next couple days, so it'll be interesting to see the Japanese grading population there. But I think the high grade of gem rate, I think the quality of the cards, I think that has also got a lot of people's attention here in this space right now. Now, the other thing that I wanted to say is this, and this is really important to remember, is that markets are cyclical, right? Like we all understand that. Like some things, whatever's hot today could not be hot in the next couple years, and it all depends on where the market is attention. And this is some information down here from TCG Fish, and this is really the only data that I pull from TCG Fish. I mean, that's a whole different story for another day, but the green line down below represents the average single card price for Japanese cards, and the orange one represents the average singles card price for English Pokemon cards over the course of really from February of 2019 all the way to October as of late. And you'll see that pre-pandemic, look, they were pretty much in lockstep, right? They're almost the same thing. Then English starts to break out a little bit. Then the pandemic hits and they get back where they're level again. And then post-pandemic, when the fade starts to come down a little bit, when all the craze starts to go away, you see the Japanese really starts to separate itself a little bit from English, okay? And then I have this blown up, this tail end here at the very end. This represents the last 2 months worth of data. So this is September, October, and a little bit of November in here. And you're gonna see that now what we're starting to see is that the Japanese singles cards and the English single cards are again starting to come very close to one another. So maybe the phrase is kind of fizzling out a little bit in regards to Japanese singles. Maybe people are focusing less on Japanese singles and more on Japanese sealed. Because obviously the sealed is not seeing that compression. The sealed is absolutely going through the roof. But it is always important to understand that markets can be cyclical. What's hot today might not be hot tomorrow. So I thought this was a really cool thing to look at and just understand how English and Japanese cards have kind of worked in lockstep or have diverged at times. And this is really cool information. Now, getting into the final slide right here. It's hard to ignore these price jumps. It really is. Like, this is just absolutely crazy stuff that we haven't seen really since kind of the pandemic time when a lot of the cards were just absolutely going crazy. We looked at 21 different boxes in this video. 18 of them are up and most of them are over 20% gains over the last 6 months. Absolutely insane. Now listen, I am a big believer in buy what will go up, not what was. So though I am looking at dipping a toe into the Japanese market, but I don't want to buy, say, an EV Heroes box, which is $420 right now. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait till some more product comes out, some more recent product comes out, so I can buy it at, close to MSRP as I possibly can, and then see if that follows the same trend that some of these other sets have, because I feel like a lot of the upside is already built into these boxes, especially if the booster box market is getting a little bit frothy, kind of like the singles market did not long ago. And I know 151, I'm being told 151 is going to be printed to demand again. I don't know what that means. I'm being told that there's going to be a new drop of 151 Japanese products here relatively soon. And if that happens, that might be a really cool opportunity to get in. I mean, 151 is going to be a fantastic set, hands down. I think they can print it and print it and print it and print it, and it just doesn't matter if it's English, if it's Japanese. I don't care. I think 151 is one of those products that has a ton of safety and is going to do really well in the long run. So For me, who's looking to dip their first toe in the Japanese market, it might be when that 151 reprint comes out and I can get stuff probably not at MSRP, let's be honest, but maybe as close to as possible and give me some room for some upside protection and some upside running. So listen, my personal rule is never invest in something you don't understand, but if it looks good, do your research. And that's what I'm doing right now. You cannot ignore the Japanese market and what's been doing. I love the fact that it's the origin of Pokemon. I love the fact that over there in Japan, it's just a big part of their culture. They're absolutely, frothing at the mouth about it. I don't know why that word was so hard, but I love everything about the market. I love the cards. I love the quality. I love the promos. So for me, this is, kind of another step in my evolution of trying to evolve, my collecting and investing space. So listen, that's all I have to say about Japanese booster boxes. I hope this was informative for you. I know when I did it, I learned a whole heck of a lot. So if this kind of stuff gets you excited, if you find value in it, hit that subscribe button. If you like what you saw, give us a thumbs up. Questions or comments, drop them down below, and you all have an epic one. Thanks, everybody. Bye.